Very good evening. Welcome to the State of Business on our television. I'm Sachin Ratnayaka. Let's look at the headlines first. Maximum price set for antigen and PCR tests. Health Ministry announces. The ban on fertilizer import rule. No change. Only some supplements allowed. Government stresses. News in detail. The Health Ministry announced that they have taken a decision to set a maximum price for rapid antigen tests and PCR tests carried out by private healthcare services. Accordingly, the maximum amount can be charged for a PCR test will be 6,500 rupees and a test of antigen will have to be done for an amount of 2,000 rupees. Sources from the Health Ministry said that the relevant gazette notification will be issued by the Consumer Affairs Ministry tomorrow. They also said that a recent survey by the Consumer Affairs Authority done in a number of private sector hospitals have revealed that a PCR test have been charged from 5,500 rupees to 9,750 rupees. According to their survey, an antigen test have been charged from 2,000 rupees to 5,500 rupees. They further added that they led them to set a maximum price for PCR and antigen tests in order to prevent undue and unfair charges by the private sector hospitals or medical centers. State Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna yesterday said that the ministry went for a price controlling measure instead of making the prices publicly available, allowing customers to go to the cheapest place. He also said that CAA officials with the assistance from the ministry visited 45 hospitals in 21 districts. The State Minister also added that the actual cost of a test may vary due to the country where kits are imported from, the salaries paid, the incentive paid to work overtime, the cost of the machines and the volume of tests. However, the State Minister stresses that the government is not ready for any reason to allow the private sectors to make it a business which makes undue profit, especially when the country is in a danger. Co-Cabinet spokesman Minister Keheliya Rambukwala yesterday stressed that fertilizer which have been classified as harmful will not be allowed to import, but the ruling will be erased on necessary occasions where it needs to be used as a supplement. Minister Rambukwala made these clarifications replying to a journalist during the weekly cabinet media briefing took place last morning.
My understanding is that they're not fertilizer or other harmful thing, but there are certain components that are required for certain plant. For instance, coconut, you need 3 kilos. This is what I bred. Out of which 2 kilos is the local, they call the organic. Then you have some potassium and nitrogen which has to come in to make it successful. Now, those areas, very specific area, the material, will be imported to supplement, but not the, what you call this, which are classified as harmful. That will not be permitted, but there are certain components that are required to, for certain plantation like the tea and coconut particularly. So those things are being under consideration.
Mass Media Minister Keheliya Rambukwala explained that the decision was taken purely to make sure that some needy plantations do not suffer with the government's policy decision. Minister Rambukwala stressed that the policy of being organic is still valid.
This is highly a technical area. To my understanding is what was discussed, that non-toxin, that's a terminology, of certain fertilizer which are required, which we don't have, which we cannot produce at the moment. Maybe as time goes on that we'll be able to embark on that as well. But right now that we are unable to, but we do not want to get the plantation suffer as a result of not having this particular kind of chemical components that are in, the chemical components, that's the chemical they use. I don't know, when you say chemical, one might say they are not organic. But according to some of the experts, what I read, I will give you the detailed count on that after discussing with this expert panel, which was appointed, in fact, yesterday again. That's supposed to be some liquid which is required for the organic, and that is also supposed to be some organic formulation.
Stay tuned for more news. We'll be right back after a small commercial break.
News, views, highlights, updates and opinions. This is Wake Up With Us.
Domestic workers in the country will also be given labour rights relevant to the working class in the country, including EPF, ETF. This was stated by the Minister of Labour Nimal Siripala de Silva in a discussion which was held with a team of representatives from several trade unions yesterday. Labour Minister Nimal Siripala stated yesterday that amendments to the relevant bills will be brought soon to establish a wage board for the domestic workers and to grant membership of the Employees Provident Fund and Employees Trust Fund for those workers. The union representatives pointed out that the new legislation brought by the Ministry of Labour would give the Department of Labour recognition as a community of domestic workers by providing greater protection for the domestic workers in the country. The minister also added that these drafting bills will be brought so that the employee or the employer won't be treated unfairly. With the establishment of a wage board for domestic workers, they will receive the existing protection for the existing labour laws and regulations in this country. Meanwhile, several trade union representatives who pushed the government for this move to include the domestic employees to the club of ETF and EPF also voiced their thoughts after Labour Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva promised to bring their proposals to the Cabinet of Ministers.
Yesterday, Labour Minister Honorable Nimal Siripala de Silva called us for a meeting to discuss and get our inputs to enforce new laws for domestic workers. Minister told us he is taking necessary action to amend the existing acts of EPF, ETF and minimum wage, with entering domestic workers to get the EPF and ETF from their employers. Still, there are no any legal framework for domestic workers. He also emphasized that he could introduce new wages board for domestic workers. From this wages board, we know all of domestic workers in Sri Lanka will get many benefits like written contract document, paid leave, minimum wage and social security. Labour Minister told us that he will introduce budgetary relief allowance also for domestic workers.
This is just a discussion came out. We hope, because the last government period also agreed and it went to drafting committee. After that, it stopped the process. So we hope the government should think domestic workers are part of this country. They are citizens of this country. So therefore, this has to come to the end. They have to bring this legislation, and it's a historical one if they bring it there. So therefore, and all the domestic workers, we prefer if they can join with domestic workers union, then their labor rights also protected. When we have a law, it's very important. The union power is very important.
Colombo Stock Exchange on a positive note today. The All Share Price Index gained by 24.69 points to close at 8,095.57, and the S&P SL20 gained by 8.93 points to close at 3,041.17. The turnover was 2.9 billion rupees and over 121 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow with State of Business on usual time. Until then, take care. Good night.